My biggest fear is that people won't wake up. Biggest fear is that people won't ever wake up. I have a friend who is a truck driver and was actively at the port in Seattle, seeing that shipping containers were not coming in. Is actively losing work, not being able to get loads to pick up as we speak, and still getting harassed, belittled, told that it's not real.
When the tariffs against China inevitably hit 300%, you are going to see China completely bypass intellectual property and release their own iPhone. And it is going to sweep the globe.
Okay, people asking me, since I'm in China, if there's people are worrying about the tariffs or this and that, and if they're concerned. The reality is not really.
I know that China is doing very poorly right now.
They're not doing poorly, trust. Australia now handles the beef, Canada the oil, Brazil the soybeans, France the aircraft, and have you heard they're investing in electric cars from Germany and tech from South Korea? That's not crumbling.
Hey besties, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're spilling the tea on one of the biggest economic showdowns of the century, the US-China tariff war. And guess what? China isn't just surviving, it's thriving while America is, well, struggling. Some say this is karma for decades of US economic bullying. But how did we get here? What do Chinese people really think? And why is America's strategy failing so hard? Buckle up, because we've got 5 deep dive segments coming at you, packed with facts, memes, and some serious economic drama. Let's get into it.
Okay, people asking me, since I'm in China, if there's people are worrying about the tariffs or this and that, and if they're concerned. The reality is not really. Even the factory that I work with, because I work in fashion and apparel, clothing designer, I don't know, they have a lot of their clients are from Europe, a lot of their clients are from Australia, a lot of their clients are from Singapore. And also, even if they did lose a certain amount of wealth and income, it's not going to affect their daily lives. No one's going to starve, no one's going to lose their home, unlike Americans, which they are and will, because communism, bro. They have a right to housing and food, and they can ask the government for assistance if this kind of stuff happens, because that's the whole point. So nobody cares, nobody's rattled. If anything, they feel kind of bad for Americans. They're like, that sucks, and then they're just learning more and more and more, and deep propagandizing their own minds about America, because they thought it was this land of everyone being wealthy with big houses. It's really showing them that that is so far from the truth.
I know that China is doing very poorly right now.
They're not doing poorly, trust. Australia now handles the beef, Canada the oil, Brazil the soybeans, France the aircraft, and have you heard they're investing in electric cars from Germany and tech from South Korea? That's not crumbling. That's strategy. The global system is shifting. China can buy anything that the US sells from another country. However, the US heavily relies on China for things like antibiotics, medical equipment, electronics, rare earth elements, solar panels, batteries, clothing, toys, furniture. I call that leverage. This plan is just not feasible. You don't have the factories, supply chain, global support, and even with billions of dollars in funding, it'll take at least 10 years to separate from China. And in the meantime, empty shelves and increased prices for the citizens of the United States. That's a good job. That's a great job. I don't get it.
All right, besties, let's rewind. In 2018, then President Trump launched a full-scale trade war against China, slapping tariffs on over $360 billion worth of Chinese goods. The goal? To bring manufacturing back to America and weaken China's economy. But here's the plot twist: it didn't work. At all. Instead, China did something brilliant. They adapted. While US companies groaned under higher costs, China shifted gears, boosting domestic consumption, expanding into new markets, Africa, Latin America, ASEAN, and even cutting deals with Europe. Meanwhile, American farmers and manufacturers got crushed. Soybean exports to China plummeted, and US factories still couldn't compete with China's supply chain. By 2024, the US trade deficit with China was still massive, proving that tariffs alone don't solve America's deeper economic problems. So who really won this round? China, by playing the long game.
If you take a look at this map right here, you can see all the countries shaded in with blue had the United States as their #1 trading partner back in the year 2000. And then the countries shaded in red, their #1 trading partner was China. Here's how the map has changed in 24 years. In 2024, all the countries shaded in the red had their largest trading partner as China, and all the countries shaded in blue, their largest trading partner was the United States. And when we take a look at all of China's exports, the United States doesn't make up that much. So when they say that they don't care if the United States no longer purchases products from them, they mean they don't care because they have the rest of the world. The Trump administration needs to take a really good look at this map and realize that the little countries left that are shaded in blue, threatening tariffs on them isn't going to help you. It's like Trump is fighting so hard to push away what little countries there are left actually entertaining the United States.
My biggest fear is that people won't wake up. My biggest fear is that people won't ever wake up. I have a friend who is a truck driver and was actively at the port in Seattle, seeing that shipping containers were not coming in. He's actively losing work, not being able to get loads to pick up as we speak, and still getting harassed, belittled, told that it's not real. That is exactly what happened during COVID. When COVID hit, I was an ER nurse in a level 1 trauma ER in the state. People never woke up. I don't mean that in the sense, well, I literally and figuratively, but figuratively, they never woke up. And I find myself telling myself that things will get bad enough and people will wake up and America will figure its shit out. It has to get bad enough for enough people and then they'll wake up. And I just put 2 and 2 together today. I don't know that that will happen because these same people are the people who blue lips, gasping breaths, watching family members pass away and suffocate, being told that they can't get ventilators, losing their newborn child, losing their parents, their spouse, brothers and sisters, watching their own oxygen decrease, realizing that they're very sick, would use their last dying breath to yell at us and tell us that it was fake. They never woke up. There were people who spent months in the ICU with their spouse or their loved one and still refused to get the vaccine, refused to believe that COVID was real. That is how set in their ways they were. I don't know that people will wake up for this. I don't think that there's a certain demographic that it has to affect before people will wake up, because COVID also affected every demographic. Granted, yes, there were certain demographics it affected more, but it touched everyone. It took lives of every different social, cultural, economic class. And those people never woke up. And we are 5 years deeper into this tunnel, this rabbit hole. Things that I saw from the people in COVID, the willingness to fight the people trying to help you as you are literally gasping for your last breath. Times that by 5 more years of lies and indoctrination and being in a cult. I don't know, guys. It's bringing back of how it felt to be a nurse back then. Listening to my friend talk about being a trucker right now. Looking people in the eye and saying, I am not getting jobs. There are no shipments coming in because of what is going on. They straight to your face, they tell you you're lying or that they know better. That is exactly how it felt. And knowing that your personal hell was just ramping up, knowing that things were going to get so much worse, and you were on the front lines of that impending sense of doom that you know is coming, and nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear you. They'd rather call you names, call you a liar, say that they know better than you, and then you think, well, if enough people get sick, if enough people go broke, if enough people don't eat, if enough people go to the stores and the shelves are empty, if just enough people, whatever you want, fill in the blank, then they'll wake up and then they'll realize that we're not lying. No, they won't. No, they won't. It's literally an endless, vicious cycle, and I can tell you firsthand, people will use the last bit of air in their lungs to tell you that you're wrong.
Now, besties, let's get into the real tea. What do everyday Chinese people think about this tariff drama? I scoured social media, talked to locals, and the reactions are gold. Many see the US tariffs as a sign of desperation, proof that America is scared of China's rise. One Beijing University student told me, the US thought they could bully us, but China doesn't bow to pressure. And honestly, she's right. Chinese netizens have been roasting America with memes, like that viral post comparing US tariffs to a kid trying to break a steel wall with a plastic hammer. But it's not all jokes. Some worry about long-term tensions, especially tech bans. Still, overall, there's huge national pride in how China handled the pressure. State media frames it as China's standing strong against Western containment, and people are buying it. So while Americans pay more for goods, Chinese consumers barely felt a dent. Who's laughing now?
Some Americans really don't use their brains. When I said in my last post, high US tariffs could raise prices and hurt Americans, people commented, that doesn't make sense. Then why is China raising tariffs too? Aren't they scared of price increase? Okay, 2 questions. First, who imports more from whom? Second, what's each country importing? The US imports 2 to 3 times more from China than vice versa, mostly everyday goods, the kind where price hikes directly affect average consumers. But China imports primarily high-end products, like luxury cars, advanced chips, designer goods, affecting mainly the wealthy. So why does the US rely on China for daily essentials? Simply because there are not enough US factories that make what's needed. This American entrepreneur, after the tariff war, wanted to find a US factory to make him the package of his hot sauce, but there is none. He said he also tried looking for some other country like Mexico, but the cost is 50 times the cost of China. So could someone build a US factory to replace Chinese imports? Sure, if they've got millions or even billions of dollars to burn and years to waste. But with Trump's erratic policies where today's role could be overturned by a tweet tomorrow, would anyone risk huge capital on such uncertainty? Not to mention, a new president in 4 years could scrap everything. And China, most daily goods are made domestically. Even a lot of American brands you see on the shelves in China are actually made in China. So even if it's an American brand, if it's made and sold in China, no tariffs involved. And so no price spike. What's China's biggest everyday import from the US? Probably soybeans. But China started diversifying years ago, bringing in soybeans from Brazil and elsewhere. So tariffs, not a big deal for the average Chinese person, but to the Americans, the story is very different. Do you understand?
When the tariffs against China inevitably hit 300%, you are going to see China completely bypass intellectual property and release their own iPhone. And it is going to sweep the globe. Have you seen what iShowSpeed was presented in China recently? My man was at, I think, a tech store, and he was handed a Trifolding phone. It was the size of like an iPad mini, and it folds twice into a phone. Unlike Apple, which is going to be dropping, I think, a foldable $3,000 phone this year and next year. They've got already tri-folding phones. Yes, China has significant human rights issues, privacy issues, and other major issues. But they are also leagues above us when it comes to healthcare, tech, and transportation. They have the infrastructure to produce the tech for the rest of the world. They don't need us. We need them because that's where we get our stuff from. Oh, but that's fine. We'll just make the phones in our own country when production comes back to the States. Yeah, I'm not buying a $30,000 phone. I can relocate to another country for that money.
Okay, besties. Let's talk about the real cost of America's tariff war, and spoiler, it's not China paying the price. Those tariffs made everything from iPhones to clothes more expensive for Americans. And guess what? US companies still couldn't replace Chinese factories fast enough. When COVID hit, America faced massive shortages, from semiconductors to medical supplies, because, surprise, you can't just decouple from the world's factory overnight. Now, economists say US inflation was worsened by these tariffs, costing the average American household over $1,200 extra per year. Ouch. And here's where the karma kicks in. After decades of the US pushing globalization, then suddenly trying to cut China out, the world sees America as unreliable. Even US allies like Europe are now trading more with China. So who's really isolated here?
China is so smart. They decided to tell Donald Trump with an increase of 145 tariff, go F yourself. Because they decided to say, okay, you want to raise our tariffs like that? No problem. Every American company is going to feel it, because now we're going to tell every American citizen how to buy directly from us, where they will get an 80% discount basically, because everyone knows you buy from China is extremely cheap, and then they sell it for so much money, like the Bergen bag, a luxury product. They do their Bergen bag. It costs us $3,800. They do it for $1,000. Do you see what I'm saying? And you don't pay any tariffs under $800. They're currently going right now in TikTok showing everyone how to reach out to the manufacturers, how to decide what product you want, how much this, how much that. They're telling everything so that Donald Trump can feel it, and companies in America can feel it, which, let me tell you, it's genius. Completely genius. So if you want to make sure and you want to buy products directly from them and get 80% off, just go into TikTok and search it. I usually get my products from Alibaba.com. And let me tell you, it's the same thing from China. Same discount. What do you guys think about this? About China's decision to retaliate in this way? What do you guys think?
I hate to say this, but most brands are not going to survive this tariff war. 104% tariff has been placed on Chinese imported goods. And you know who that affects the most? Small businesses, small US businesses. And even for a business like ours that is very stable and profitable, we are now going to be going in the red. Effectively, what this tariff has done is it's made it extremely, extremely expensive. We're basically paying taxes that didn't exist before on goods being shipped into the US from China. And we're in the nail business, and there's no way to produce that in the US. There is no factory for press-on nails, and the best factories in terms of craftsmanship is in China. There's a couple that we're looking to in Vietnam, but even then that's like a 48% tariff rate. And just so you guys understand what this will cost most businesses, even last Thursday at the 54% tariff rate, that would be equivalent to us adding 3 times the amount of employees that we currently have. So imagine adding another 50% on top of that. That's like hiring like 500 more people. Like, that is insane. That is, most businesses will go out of business. There is no way that people have enough, even cash flow, to be able to sustain a business. We're all fucked. Like, if this continues. And obviously we're going to try our best, and what's going to happen is it's going to get passed down to the consumer. There is no way that a company will be able to stay afloat and absorb all of this. They will definitely pass it on to the customer, and the customer will have to choose if that is still wise for them to purchase. But I'm hoping that this fizzles out. There's no way that this can continue without a massive recession, and 90% of US businesses going out of business within a year. If this stays on for that long, it will be absolutely devastating for our economy. So I'm hoping that, I understand why he's doing it, but the way he's doing it is, it's not giving us any time to prepare, because to be able to move your entire manufacturer infrastructure to the US, especially for a product category that historically has never been produced in the US, it is so difficult. That would be like a $20 million investment at least. So I guess we'll see how this shakes out, but I think every business owner is in the same boat, where we are just like watching the news every second as it comes by, and like redoing our projections, figuring out with our finance team, like what can we do? Like, basically it's all hands on deck. And I was literally in China last week talking to our factory to try to negotiate the 20+% tariff that we had, only for the following day to have the tariffs go up to 54%. And then today, 104%. So I have no idea where this is going. I don't think anyone is. So we'll see.
Now, besties, here's where China's revenge gets spicy. While America was busy with tariffs, China was quietly building an economic arsenal. First, tech dominance. Huawei survived US bans and now leads in 5G. Chinese EVs are outselling Tesla in Asia. And TikTok? Yeah, America couldn't even ban that. Second, rare earth minerals. China controls 80% of global supply, meaning the US can't make missiles, phones, or even electric cars without them. And third, ditching the dollar. China's pushing the yuan in oil deals, expanding BRICS, and even launching a digital currency. Meanwhile, the US debt crisis is making the dollar look shaky. So while America tries to contain China, Beijing is playing 4D chess. Checkmate, besties.
Trump erected the 145% tariff to punish China, whatever that means. And it's working. But, and hold on for a moment and just bear with me. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, just published its real GDP growth projections for 2025. And China's growth is forecast to decrease by 0.6%, from 4.6% growth down to 4% growth. Not good news, but first, that lower 4% growth rate is higher, 1.3% higher than the US projected growth rate before Trump ruined the economy. In other words, China is still expected to grow faster after the tariffs than America's growth before the tariffs. And secondly, the US is forecast to slow from 2.7% to 1.8%. So China's lower growth rate is 2.2% higher than the US's lower growth rate. So, and this is the critical part, China's forecasted GDP growth went from 4.6 to 4%, a 13% decrease. That is a big hit. And that's what I mean by Trump's tariffs are punishing China. The but is that the US GDP growth went from 2.7% to 1.8%, and that is a 33% decrease. And that is huge. So yes, Trump punished China with a 13% decrease in growth, but in the process slashed American GDP growth by 33%. And that is how a failed 5 times bankrupt businessman who could not keep a casino, yes, a casino afloat, wins. If I was in the US stock market now, I would be out of the US stock market now.
America's karma for its addiction to slave labor has come in the form of China's dominance. And what if I told you that both Martin Luther King and Thomas Jefferson, in a way, both predicted that this would happen? During the Vietnam era, Dr. King made a speech that said, "America, I can hear God telling you that you're becoming too arrogant. And if you're not careful, I will break the backbone of your power and give it to a nation that doesn't even know my name." What was the backbone of America's power? Manufacturing. What's the nation that didn't know God's name? Communist, atheist, China. You see, what a lot of people don't talk about is that the deindustrialization of America was targeted towards black communities first, because they saw that these communities were being supported by men who have abilities to provide for their families in a way that made them economically competitive. So the first manufacturing plants that were flattened were targeted to black communities. This industrial flattening soon spread to white communities. And it was all about America being able to make a quick buck for pennies on the dollar, that same addiction that it had forged in the cotton fields of the South. In his essay, Notes on the State of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson wrote, "If you should ever have occasion to beat your slave, always make sure you do so when your child is not present." See, he saw himself in a moment of clarity abusing one of his enslaved workers with his son watching, and realized that he was teaching his son a kind of loosed passions and rageful behavior that would pass down to the generations and make them both rageful and lazy. In that essay, Thomas Jefferson talked about how nations rise and fall on their discipline and industry, and if slavery should persist, it could corrupt these qualities in white Americans. And since America learned how to practice a capitalism that was based on lowest possible wages with highest amount of output, it was only a matter of time before they took the shortcut instead of the long way in its own industry. This kind of racism hustled backwards for so many generations for white America, it's hard to tell when things could have gone a different direction. But I say it should have happened in the labor movement, when, Had white laborers allowed black laborers into their unions, the bosses would have never had a chance to deindustrialize in the first place. And now the dog whistle racist politics of MAGA have created a political fiction that blinded millions of people into voting for somebody who was the worst possible steward for the wealth that America had built over so many centuries. $10 trillion gone in the stock market in a matter of weeks. See, when you have a business model that's based on parasitic labor extraction, those who know how to work hard will eventually overcome you in time, because the actual know-how to get things done is in their hands, in their minds, and in their bodies. This was inevitable. If we think that war with China will restore our dominance, I highly suggest that we rethink that sentiment, because you never want to go to war with somebody who can out-manufacture you. Just ask the antebellum South. We tried to told them, but they wouldn't listen. One prophet after the next met the business end of a bullet. We tried to get America to be true to its integrity, which was a cause to discipline for us to take the long way to wealth instead of being addicted to the slave model that got us to be dominant powers in the first place. That's just my thoughts on this. I'm Theo E.J. Wilson. Holla back. Tell me what y'all think in the comments. Peace, peace.
Final question, besties. Is China America's karma? Some say yes. After years of sanctions, regime changes, and trade wars, the US is now facing its own medicine. Others argue it's just geopolitics. No karma, just strategy. But here's the reality. China isn't slowing down. With the yuan gaining traction, US debt ballooning, and global trust in America fading, the balance of power is shifting. So what's next? More US tariffs? More Chinese innovation? Or maybe, just maybe, a multipolar world where America isn't the boss anymore? Either way, one thing's clear. China isn't just winning the tariff war, it's rewriting the rules of the game. And that, besties, is what we call karma. That's all for today, besties. Drop a comment. Do you think China is winning the tariff war? Is America getting karma? Let's debate. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more unfiltered takes on global economics. Until next time, stay savvy, stay winning, and remember, the world's changing and China's leading the charge. Adios, besties.